Ear Radio on air online, Lake 96.1, Saturday at the 70s. During the month of March, we are going to have Homemade Hitmakers Month on the program. We're going to spotlight a number of bands from around our listening area and some maybe a little bit outside of it, but they managed to make it big nationally as well as internationally during the 1970s. We're going to spotlight those bands. Today, we're going to spotlight a band that actually lives up to the title of this month, because they literally are homemade hitmakers. They recorded their first original material in a living room of a home in Zion, Illinois. They also managed to come across a record cutter, pressed their own records, distributed those records. Eventually, one thing led to another, and they became an internationally loved band. The members of the group include the Murphy brothers, Jeff and John, John's friend Gary Klebe, and at the time the drummer was Skip Meyer. The band, Shoes. And we welcome to Saturday at the 70s a member of Shoes, Jeff Murphy, joins us. And Jeff, thanks a lot for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
First of all, we want to make this point. The band is called Shoes, not The Shoes. And secondly, I want you to debunk any sort of thought that the name of your band came from a quote that John Lennon made once.
John thought of the name Beatles, and he'll tell you about it now. It means Beatles, doesn't it? You know, that's just a name. You know, like shoe. The shoes. You see, we could have been called the Shoes for all you know.
Well, that's true. It did not come from that, but it was a great coincidence. My brother came up with the name back in, before we actually even played together, probably 73. And he just thought it was kind of a great name. It was very self-effacing and simple. And initially, his school pal, Gary, those two guys initially started the band. I always suspected that it had something to do with the fact that there was two of them. And, you know, I thought, oh, okay. But he always said it was just a simple, everyday word. Then in 1979, the first time we saw that Beatle clip, it was like, whoa, man, what a great coincidence.
You began a little bit about the formation of Shoes. Just explain, not necessarily as a group that's out doing gigs, but just starting out at home.
Yeah, our love of records was what inspired it, was the fact that even looking at our own record collections, the stuff that we heard on the radio, we never saw those bands live. It didn't matter to us. And if we did eventually see the bands, I mean, I did get a chance to see the Rolling Stones, I did get a chance to see the Who, but that came years later. So to us, if it was the chicken or the egg, the record, the recorded product was the first thing that we heard, and then we would go to see the band. So that's the way we approached it, which was kind of different at the time because people were so had in their mindset that you go out there and you play and you play and you play, and eventually you get noticed. But now it's particularly true that you can make a tremendous impact without ever having done a show. You know, with the internet and social media, you can get your music out there to virtually anyone that has a computer. All you got to do is get them to go to your website or download your song, and they, you know, once again, I have a lot of bands that I've never seen that I love their stuff. And playing live is always it's kind of like asking Picasso to paint in a mall, you know? You know, you say, well, yeah, he does this great painting, but can they do it in front of an audience? You say, well, this doesn't really matter to me if he can or can't.
And because of that, you ended up picking up, it was a multi-track recorder you got, right? At the time when you started?
I bought what was one of the first commercially available 4-track recorders. And it really gave us our career. I mean, we started recording, learning the craft, learning how to record, and making mistakes along the way, but it really was a great way to kind of learn the ins and outs of recording, you know, to understand how it works.
Sure, and then from there, you ended up coming across a record presser that actually made vinyl records.
Yes, I had gotten a record cutter, and back in the 50s, you could go and make a record at like a local dime store, you know, pay $1 or whatever, and sing, and it would cut a disc for you to take home and play. And I found one at a rummage sale, and so I bought it, and we used that to cut our first record. It was a 10-inch record, and it was only mono, but it was our first record. It was called Heads or Tails, and it was the first official recording by the band. Very, very crude, very primitive, and the fidelity was terrible, but it was, at least we were on record, and it was so exciting back, you know, anybody could have a song on tape, but to have a record made things different.
But with one of those records you ended up making at home, you actually got one that got some airplay, correct?
Yeah, the record that really kind of launched us was by 1977. We had done we had done 3 full albums worth of songs in my living room on 4-track. Mm-hmm. And by 77, the 4th one that we did was called Black Vinyl Shoes, right. And we really went all out on that one, pressing it up on. We had 15 songs. We had an iron-on for T-shirts. We had a sticker. We had a little poster in there, and we did everything we could to make it desirable, hopefully. And we were lucky enough to kind of catch the eye of the public, of the press, and the press went crazy and really exploded for us. That's what really was the game changer, was that record got a ton of press internationally and nationally. Trouser Press in New York picked it up. Bomb magazine in California picked it up, and they would help with distribution, and they would call and they would say, listen, I've got a friend over here, and he likes this kind of music. Send him a copy. And he writes for this magazine. And it just grew and grew until eventually we had this whole press network of people that were, really kind of going to bat for us, and it really gave us our career. That record gave us our career.
And so much so that it got to the point where around that time, the new wave movement was happening in America, in Europe, and what happened was there were a number of record companies here in America that started taking notice of what you were doing with that Black Vinyl Shoes album.
Right, and we actually sub-licensed. I mean, we had only pressed up 1,000 copies of Black Vinyl Shoes on our own label, our own imprint. Then there was a label out of New York called Gem Imports, and they're the ones that brought when Cheap Trick released the Budokan album, that was the label that imported it. And this was right on the heels of that. So, they had extra money to explore and find other bands, and they licensed Black Vinyl Shoes from us and released it on their imprint with a different cover, same music, but with a different cover. And that caught the eye of the vice president of Elektra Records out of Los Angeles. And they flew in, and we ended up doing a deal with Elektra. So that was kind of the chain of events to getting that major label deal.
And we'll hear more about Shoes post-major record contract coming up next hour as we're bringing more Saturday at the 70s here at Lake 96.1. Now, one of those songs that they recorded on one of those homemade records became one of the cuts, in fact, the lead cut on their first major label album for Elektra Records called Present Tense. That song is called Tomorrow Night, and here it is for you on Lake 96.1 and Saturday at the 70s.
is enough.